Good morning, student. Welcome to our section 16 research budget. We know budget is very important in every situation or in everything that we conduct in our daily life. If we do things without budgeting, most of the time we end up not doing anything. For example, if we may have an idea or we may know what to do, but if we don't have these resources, which means there is nothing that we can do. So in every research setup, uh, there is what we call budget. What necessary resources do you need to accomplish your research? Uh, this is what we are going to see, the research budget. And by the end of this session, I'm expecting you to be able to identify the important points to be considered when starting to plan for data collection. Determine what the resources are available and needed to carry out the research. I should be able to describe the activities of the research and cost the research activities material and supplies required. Let's see identification of important points to be considered when starting on to plan for data collection. We say the most important points to be considered when starting to plan for data collection are the following. It should be simple, realistic, and easily understood by those directly involved. It should cover the preparatory and the implementation phases of the project, as well as data analysis, reporting, dissemination, and utilization of result. We know when we do a research design, we know in every step of the research there are resources that are needed. There are costs that the research has to incur to carry on the research. This is why we have to write the budget on everything that we're going to do or we're planning to. So the activities covered should include training, technical or research tasks, administrative, secretarial, and other support tasks. Some research need to facilitate uh, people so that you can go together on carrying on the research. So the budget also should be there for capacity building, because you have to build capacity for your team to carry on the research. So when we say training, let's say what is this training for? This training stands for this. And technical research tasks, administrative, secretarial, and other support tasks, which are very common in every step of research that we're taking. Last, the realities of local customs, local holidays, and festivals. It should have the realities of local customs and local festival, and working hours should be considered when preparing the work plan. For example, you prepare your work plan, you should know maybe Sunday or Saturdays we are not going to work, or we are going to work. We are not going to work on weekends, and the weekdays maybe we're gonna start from 9 to 5:30, or from 2 to 4:30. It should be clearly explained. Uh, Also, uh, seasonal changes and their effect on travel work habits on the topic you are studying, such as incidence of disease or nutritional status, should be kept in mind at the schedule planned. I think this is open and it's common everywhere where we see also seasonal changes and their effect on the travel or work habits on the topic you're studying. Maybe the topic you're studying it might or it will give you a relevant result in this season, in winter, maybe autumn or whatever. So from there you're going to choose which is the right season for you to conduct your research. Are we getting? So season changes and the effect on travel or work habits should be considered on this and on the topic you're going to start. For example, such as incidence of disease or nutritional status maybe should be kept in mind as a shadow is planned. Let's see the determination of resources available and needed to carry out the research. Determination of resources available and needed to carry out the research. Based on the work plan, specify for each activity in the work plan what resources and inputs are required. For each resources, determine unit cost and number of units to get the total cost. For this, we're gonna see the demonstration of the budget and how you're gonna work your plan, or you're gonna make your plan work on budgeting the unit cost and the total cost, the subtotal, and the grand total on a budget to see how are you going to get the picture of your research budget in totality. First, you should know the activities of the research if you want to plan for budget. If you don't know the activities of your research, it will be very difficult for you to lie down these realities on the table to measure the cost or whatever. Knowing the activities will open you on how to conduct the research budget and what the budget goes on. Let's see the activities of the research. I will say the research activities include finalize research proposal and submit to ethical committee for clearance. We have seen in research ethics, so when we say committee for clearance, we know what does it mean. So translate questionnaires, typing, multiplying, recruiting research assistants, obtain clearance and orient of DHOs, health institution and village health workers, train research assistants, pre-test start, collect data, process data and make preliminary interpretation, analyze data and write report, disseminate and discuss research findings and preliminary recommendations with community members, health staff. Disseminate and discuss of research findings and the preliminary recommendation with the policy makers, managers and others. Draft preliminary plan for action. Hold meeting with policy makers, managers, others to discuss plan for action for implementing recommendation. Follow up on implementation of plan of action. Now we come now to the reality of whatever we try to point out on research activities. So let's get costing the research activities, material and supplies required. Costing the research activities, materials and supplies required. Because in every part of the research activities, there are costs which should be incurred. And it should be analyzed and should be shown in the budget clearly, crystal clear, showing what real cost. Then let's see purpose of the budget. A detailed budget will help to identify which resources are already locally available and which additional resources may be required. The process of budget design will encourage you to consider aspects of the work plan you have not thought about before. Serve as a useful reminder of activities planned as your research gets underway. You know, there are some resources are naturally there. You don't need them because the environment or the nature give the provision. But there are some which you need you really need them. Are we getting? And other additional resources in which you need them, they are not there, and they are costful. So you should show how do they cost, how much do they cost for the research to be carried on. And the process of budget design, so we encourage you to consider the aspect of work plan you have not thought about before. Let's see the budget preparation. A complete budget is not prepared until the final stage of project planning. A complete budget is not prepared until the final stage of project planning. What does it mean? Cost is usually a major limiting factor and therefore must always be kept in mind during planning so that your proposal will not have an realistically high budget. Remember that both ministries and donor agencies who should set limit for research project budgets. So the use of locally available resources increases the visibility of the project from a financial point of view. They should keep it in mind that not everything goes smoothly. So as we say, the use of locally available resources increases the feasibility of the project from a financial point of view. That's in the categories of budget. Fund for personnel allowances for researchers and assistance during training, research assistant, fieldwork, piloting, and actually start. All of this they cost. Sometimes you have researchers. These researchers need allowances and assistants. Assistants also need allowances during training research assistant. When you train them, you give them allowance because you have done capacity building. But there, you should know that you have to give them allowance. Fieldwork, piloting, and actually start. Also, it's costful. So, you also need fund for secretarial services. Example, typing the proposal questionnaire, final report, and dissemination. You also need fund for transport, number of visits and kilometers to be covered. Fund for supplies, stationery and lunch of those attending. For example, focused group discussions, meeting 5% of images. Making reasonable estimate in a budget. How do you make the reasonable estimate in a research budget? Do not underestimate the time needed to complete project tasks in the real world. Include a 5% images fund if you fear that you might have budgeted for the activities rather than conservatively. In your budget, you must have an images fund, which actually sometimes is the 5% of the budget stand for images fund. If you fear that you might have budgeted for activities rather than conservatively. If inclusion of a contingency fund is not allowed, an alternative is to slide over budget in major categories. For example, you may have these major categories. You may have budgeted them to get this 5% because some proposal guideline they do not allow you to have this emergency fund. They want the realistic of the budget. So sometimes you do the of budget the major categories to get this 5% from, and that is common an adjustment of the budget. Because when you are writing the proposal and the proposal guideline does not show you that, you should show where this 5% come from. I think you're getting the concept on this. Let's go to budget justification. It is not sufficient to present a budget without explanation. And this is clear and everyone understands that it is not sufficient to present a budget without explanation. So the budget justification follows the budget as an explanatory note justifying briefly in the context of proposal why the various items in the budget are required. Give clear explanations concerning why items that may seem questionable or that are particularly costly are needed, and discuss how complicated expenses are being calculated. If a strong budget justification has been prepared, then it is less likely that essential items will be cut during proposal review. How to reduce budget. Lesson how to reduce research budget. In reducing a research budget, explore whether other health-related institutions are willing to temporarily assign or second personnel to the project. When possible, use local rather than outside personnel. If consultants are needed at the beginning, train local personnel as soon as possible to take over their work. I think we understand. You want to do your research and you have your people around there. When you employ people from outside and you want to train them So you go on with the research, it will be costful. You cannot compare if you train the insiders to assist you in your research. So explore the use of student or community volunteers where appropriate. Plan for strict control of project expenditures, such as those for vehicle use, supplies. The budget justification follows the budget as an explanatory note, justifying briefly in the cost of the proposal why the various items in the budget are required. Give clear explanation concerning why items may seem questionable or that particular costly are needed, and discuss how complicated expenses are being calculated. If a strong budget justification has been prepared, then it is less likely the essential item will be cut during proposal review. Yeah, we've seen actually we repeated this because it's very important. You should understand this concept on how to reduce. For example, if there are parts that you need something there, that 5% emergency. Not every proposal guideline shows or indicate the emergency fund. But where are you going to create this emergency fund? Are we getting? I think now we understand the concept. Actually, where are we going to increase this? I don't think it's a problem again. So let's see this demonstration of failed budget and costs involved in the field. For example, you may have for allowances. Let's say allowances, maybe you have researchers and the number of researchers, maybe there are 5. When unit cost, you will indicate how much per person. How much do you pay for per researcher? Maybe it's 100 shillings. So in a unit cost, you write 100 shillings. When you come to total cost, then you multiply by 5. So the allowances for researchers, you need 500 because there were 5 and each paid for 100. I think you understand the concept. I assume, but this is demonstration of whatever coming from the research activities in which you have seen. The same when you come to research assistants, when you come to secretary, when you come to drivers, when you come to facilitators, or evaluation or pilot stand. Then at least you get the subtotal, cause not the total. Then you come to transport cost, we give the subtotal. You come to supplies, you give subtotal. Not if there is 5% the contingents, or if it is not, or if it should not be there, be shown, we say you know how to increase there, we get it. But if it is needed there, then we show it direct, then you will find the total of the budget. Like this 5 contingents to get the grand total. The total cost of your research. So the type of budget format to be used may vary depending upon whether the budget will be supported by your own organization or submitted to the Ministry of Health or donor organization for funding. We'll come back to the concept which I gave. As we said, the budget and the format of the proposal matters a lot according to the donor, and the criteria are measured or underlined. So most donor organizations have their own special project forms which include a budget format. Keep in mind the tendency to underestimate the time needed to complete project tasks in the real world. Keep in mind the tendency to underestimate the time needed to complete project tasks in the real world. If the budget is for a period longer than a year, build in allowances for inflation before the project begins, and in subsequent years by increasing cost by a certain percentage. It is not sufficient to present budget without explanation. When possible, use local rather than outside personnel to reduce cost. Let's see how to obtain funding for projects. Let's see how to obtain funding for projects. To conduct research, it is usually necessary to obtain funding for research project. In addition to preparing a good research proposal, the following strategies are useful for researchers who need to obtain their own funding. Familiarize yourself with the policies and the priorities of funding agencies, such as policies and priorities may be identify the procedure, deadline, and format that are relevant to each agency. Obtain written approval and support from relevant local and national health authorities and submit this together with your proposal. If you're beginning researcher, uh, associate yourself with an established researcher. If you are a beginner, you have to associate yourself with someone who has an experience in doing research. So it will be an experience sharing. So host agencies scrutinize the credibility of the researcher to whom funds are allocated. Such credibility is based on previous projects that have been successfully completed. Build up your own list of successful completed projects. That's say your own report, publication, and etc. etc. But when I give you any kind of question and attempt to answer, please do not write etc. or etc. for me. It's obvious that it's common for tutors to use the etc. as etc. etc. But to students, it's end of thinking capacity. So make sure you don't use it anywhere. Do not write etc. for me. In an attempt of any question, do not write etc. To me, it will not mean etc. etc. No, it will be something else. To student means end of thinking capacity. So let's see the key points. We have seen plan for data collection. We said it should be simple, realistic, and easily understood by those directly involved. To conduct research, it is usually necessary to obtain funding for the research project. The type of budget format to be used may vary depending upon whether the budget will be supported by your own organization or submitted to the Ministry of Health or a non-organization for funding. Let's go to evaluation. These are a few questions in which you pass through after going through with our lecture 16. Then try to answer these questions by yourself. What are the most important points to consider when starting planning for data collection? Second, what resources are available and needed to carry out the study? I think our session is ending there, and thank you for your time and thank you for listening. Up tomorrow when I get time, I'm going to answer your questions. So you go through when you face any challenges, we're gonna meet at our platform, then it's from there. You ask question and I'll be answering from there. So have a nice time.